You can do it. Whether you have goals of getting the job you always wanted, finding a meaningful relationship, or even getting the rank you want in your favorite video game, you can do it. And I can't help you with the first two, but getting that rank that you desire, I think I can help with that one. And to help, here's my Eternal Return ranked journey and everything I learned from the game in the last 2 years of grinding. So let's start at the very beginning. June 4th, 2021 was my very first ranked game. Here's what the lobby looked like. I ratted to 6th place, doing absolutely no damage, and then the next game I died before I could get my build, going 18th. I was then demoted to Iron. And not even just a little fun trip to Iron, I was hard stuck in Iron. I died 5 games in a row without getting my full build. So easy enough, if you build all of your items in a reasonable amount of time, you'll get out of Iron. But next was Bronze. It took me about 30 games to get out of Iron, and it took about 20 to get out of Bronze. I quickly learned in this elo, what it took to climb was just farming. If I could get my items done, I could just make sure I was farming as many animals as I could, and I could get ahead of people in the lobby just via mastery. And I had 100 games on Adriana at this point, so I knew what it took to kill people. So as long as I had the stat advantage, I could make something happen. So now I was at Silver. And this is when I realized farming is simply just not enough to keep up with everyone in the lobby. I started contesting objectives. I'd go for Tree for Glacial Shoes, look to get a Halo from a Forest Core, and I also contested Wick for Queen of Hearts, which is a big reason Queen has always been one of my favorite items. If you have specific characters that have big power spikes from items, or your teammates do, contesting those objectives are essential. And one thing I made sure to do is not throw my game away at objectives. It's fine to fight for them, but if you know you're going down, someone on your team needs to get out and live so you guys can fight another day. Along the way, I got my first win, and I was getting comfortable with the game's core mechanics. And about 150 games later, I got to Gold. And in Gold, I really started to push my limits. In Gold, it's the time to use all of that macro from previous tiers and start to work on my mechanics as well. It takes a lot of games, but I finally have a good gist of what my good matchups are for the character. And at this point, I was able to recognize when a team or player was insanely strong or fed, and I would try to catch up to them rather than fighting them early and at a disadvantage. Mechanics in the game to catch up to other players are getting objectives like Wick Align, which gives you a buff which evens the playing field, making traps, which gives you a huge advantage in controlling a zone in the late game, or even just escaping off the island, which is really nice when you know you have to cut your losses and just try to go positive in LP. And even though I wasn't winning many games, I was consistently placing high, which meant after 419 games in Season 2, I had finally reached Plat. That means I got my emotes, I got the skin, I had all I wanted to earn. So Season 3 rolls around and I climb a bit higher, play a fourth of my games that I did the previous season, and I end Plat 3. But I get complacent with just earning all the rewards that I want, and I released this video around that time, and I felt very confident that every season I can get to Plat. In Season 4, I get to Plat with even less games. In Season 5, I get to Plat with even less. So I felt like I was improving as a player, but just content with where I was at. And that was until Season 6. I played even less and I reached Diamond for the very first time. So what happened here? Well, a few things. Between these 4 seasons, I'll pick one thing to optimize in my gameplay and I'll focus on that. In Season 3, I started playing with Unlocked Cam, which I don't think is a must with every character, but it will probably help with Adriana if you're using Molotovs. Season 4, I learned A clicking, which is when you press A and click around who you want to attack rather than having to click on them, which helps because if you misclick, you're going to ruin your spacing. Season 5, I changed to exclusively using quick crafting rather than clicking on the items in my inventory to build. And alongside all of these changes, optimizing my gameplay, I was one-tricking Adriana and learned the character inside and out. To this day, I have over 2,000 games on Adriana, and I don't think I'd be nearly as good at the game if I diversified more. But with all this said about one-tricking, with squads being the main mode, it is important to diversify a little bit, having another character you can fall back on in case you're solo queuing and someone picks your character, or if your character really just doesn't gel with the comp, it's important to play someone else. But it's not like League of Legends where there's a ban phase and you're picking against a laner. You're really just trying to put your best foot forward with the best character you can play. And with all of that, that's how I hit Diamond. But the next season, I actually hit Titan for the very first time. So the number one biggest tip I can give anyone is make sure you're playing around vision. Every time I'm going to a new zone, I'm taking console vision. If I'm doing an objective or even something like bears, I'm putting a cam behind me so I don't get third-partied on that objective. If I don't have vision in a zone, I'm doing my best to walk around where an enemy will potentially have vision with console. A lot of these vision patterns will be something you pick up by just playing the game more, but it really cuts out a lot of things from the game, like getting third-partied while fighting people, knowing whether your farm is up, or even just helping with general decision making. Whenever I get vision of someone, I will press tab before I fight them. Why do I do this? Well, it's for a few reasons. It gives you information on whether or not you should fight that person. If they're way ahead of you on mastery, they have way more gold items, or it's just a really bad matchup, you can utilize some of the comeback mechanics and fight them later in the game. Throughout the games, my main goal is to take the most fights I can where I have an advantage and take the least fights where I have a strong disadvantage. And then the next season after this, I actually climbed to Mythril 200, which is 200 LP ahead of where I was last season. This was able to get me the fun, cool, immortal border. And how did I get here? Well, two things. One, I did my research. I watched hours of footage of top Korean Adries on dak.gg. I'll link the website in the description, but it's pretty easy. You just go to the leaderboard, you find a top player that you want to watch, and you can post the replay code into the client. And funny enough, the top Korean Adriana that I watched, Jess, actually started showing up to my Twitch chat. And I'd show up to theirs in return, and we'd communicate through Google Translate and Adriana emotes, but I got to learn a lot about the character. And after all of that, the one thing that pushed me from Titan to Mythril 200 was I played more games. I was working on a video last season before solos were removed, and it was me coaching about 20 players on how to get gold. And at the beginning of all of the coaching, in the little check-in I had, the one piece of advice I gave to all of them is you need to play more. You're climbing, you just need to put in more games. And I find that to be the case with most people who are starting out. And then the final season, I waited till the last week to play any ranked, and I couldn't quite make the climb. Something I learned about myself is it's a lot easier to play a game here and there rather than cram all of the games that I need into one last weekend. But I played a lot more duos and squads this season, and here are some of my takeaways. Something really important is having a consensus with your team on what our objectives are this game. For me and Ori, who played an Adriana-Daniel duo comp, going into every game, our game plan was we're gonna get him his dagger, we're gonna get him his blazing dress, and then after that, we're gonna start funneling CDR items to me. And having that already established is huge because after every objective, you don't have to be like, oh, who wants this item? Oh, who needs this? It's just unspoken and your tempo can keep a good pace. Now, there's plenty more I could say about how to rank up, but I think these are good places to focus on, and I think this was a bit of a cool format in presenting the info. But I will say, if you have any tips yourself you found useful, or tips that I didn't include, I'd love for you to comment them below. You might just help someone hit their rank goal. But again, thank you guys for all the support, and good luck in your ranked games.